I've been hiking these mountains for as long as I can remember. My dad took me on my first trail when I was just a kid. By the time I was a teenager, I could navigate these woods without a map. 30 years later, the trails were like second nature to me. I knew every bend, every incline, every old tree that had been split by lightning. This mountain was my backyard, my escape. But one night, it became something else. Something I didn't recognize. And something out there recognized me. It was late afternoon when I started my descent. I had been out all day, enjoying the crisp air and the quiet. I wasn't in a rush. This place had always felt safe to me. Then I slipped. It wasn't dramatic, just a small misstep on some loose rocks. But when I tried to stand, my ankle buckled. Sharp pain shot up my leg. I cursed under my breath, brushing off the dirt. It didn't seem that bad. I figured I'd sit for a few minutes, let the pain settle, then keep going. But minutes turned into hours. By the time I could put weight on my foot again, the sun had already set. I wasn't worried though. I had walked these trails at night before. I knew them like the back of my hand. At least, I thought I did. I limped forward, using a stick as a crutch. My car was only an hour and a half away. I'd be uncomfortable, sure, but I'd get there. But an hour and a half passed, then 2.5, and I wasn't at my car. I stopped, my breath coming in sharp gasps. This wasn't right. The path didn't look familiar anymore. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the tree line. The night had deepened, the stars hidden behind thick clouds. Everything looked wrong. The trees weren't the same. The trail seemed narrower, more overgrown than before. My gut twisted. I had never been lost here, not once, but now I had no idea where I was. I needed to keep moving. I picked a direction and started walking, telling myself it would lead me back to the main trail. Then I heard it. A low, cracking sound like twigs snapping underfoot. I stopped, listened, silence. I took another step, snap, another step, snap. Something was walking when I was walking, and stopping when I was stopping. A chill ran through me. I turned, shining my flashlight toward the trees. Nothing, just darkness. But I knew I wasn't alone. I walked faster. The sound behind me matched my pace. Then it picked up speed. I didn't think, I ran. The pain in my ankle didn't matter anymore. I could hear something barreling through the trees behind me, heavy footsteps, branches snapping, getting closer. Then I felt something grab my foot. I stumbled, crashing to the ground, my flashlight tumbling out of my grip. I scrambled up, but something was wrong. My shoe, it was gone. Like something had yanked it off my foot. I ran, barefoot, my lungs burning, my ankle throbbed, but I didn't stop, I couldn't. Then, a light, flickering through the trees, a campfire, voices, people, safety. I burst into the clearing, collapsing near the fire. The campers jumped up, startled. I must have looked insane, bleeding, gasping, missing a shoe. I tried to explain, but my words came out jumbled. They didn't believe me. They thought I was just disoriented. Still, they let me stay. One of them handed me a blanket, and for the first time that night I felt safe. I barely slept, but at some point exhaustion took over. Then just before dawn I heard it again. A rustling, footsteps right outside the tents. The others woke up too. One of them grabbed a flashlight and unzipped the tent. And there, right in front of us, was my missing shoe. Perfectly placed, upright, waiting. The campers didn't question me anymore. We packed up fast and left before the sun had even risen. I haven't been back to that mountain since. I don't know what was out there that night. I don't want to know. But if you ever get lost in the woods and the path feels wrong, turn around. Where I live, there are rules, unwritten ones. The first, never travel at night. In my country, the gangs own the roads after dark. The police, they're either afraid or they're part of the problem. If your car breaks down at night, you don't stop, you don't wait, you disappear. But that night, I had no choice. I got the call at 10:43 p.m. My brother was in the hospital, barely holding on. And the only way to reach him was through the mountains. The highway was empty, too quiet, like the whole world had shut down. My headlights were the only thing cutting through the darkness, the yellow glow stretching over the cracked pavement. I was making good time, too good. It felt wrong, like something was waiting ahead. And then the sound. A deep metallic clunk under the hood. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. I was 15 miles from the city, 15 miles from my brother, and I was stuck. I tried the key, nothing. I popped the hood, grabbed my phone, no signal, I was alone. There was no time to wait. The hospital was just on the other side of the mountain, a 5 to 6 mile climb. If I moved fast, I'd be there in under 2 hours. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and a flashlight, locked the car, started walking. The incline was steep, rough, but I was in good shape. I could do this. Then, I heard something. It started as a distant rustling. Then, footsteps, more than one, heavy boots. I killed my flashlight. My heart pounded. Flashlights flickered through the trees. Then I saw them, men, armed, moving in a tight group. I crouched behind a tree holding my breath. Then, one of them turned, the flashlight hit me. "Stop! Hands up!" I ran. Branches whipped my face as I tore through the trees. My breath came in sharp gasps. I was fast, but they were faster. Gunfire, not a warning shot. They were trying to hit me. Bullets ripped through the trees, splintering wood inches from my face. I could hear them yelling, shouting orders. I was on their territory. I kept running, pushing through the burn in my legs. I couldn't stop. Then, a break in the trees, a road, flashing lights, and 2 police officers standing beside my car. I burst onto the road, waving my hands. The officers spun around, hands on their holsters. "There are armed men in the woods," I yelled. The officers exchanged glances. Then they turned to the trees. One pulled out his radio, the other raised his rifle. The police cruiser's sirens blared into the night. Then 2 warning shots fired into the air. The trees fell silent. One of the officers pointed his flashlight at the forest. And that's when we saw him. A single man, crouched under a rock, watching us. He was waiting for backup. The officer turned to me. "Get in the car." "You're not going in there?" I asked. The officer shook his head. "We're outnumbered. You got lucky tonight." I climbed into the back seat. They turned the car around. We drove away. And the whole time, as we sped toward the hospital, I could feel eyes watching us from the trees. If you ever break down in the middle of nowhere, lock your doors, stay inside. Because sometimes, you're not alone. Hiking alone was supposed to be peaceful. Just me, the trail, and the sound of nature. I've always loved hiking, escaping the noise, getting away from people, clearing my mind. I had done plenty of solo hikes before, but this one felt different from the start. The trail was supposed to be well-marked, well-traveled, but by the time I realized something was wrong, it was already too late. And the worst part, I wasn't alone. It started like any other hike, a perfect day, blue skies, fresh mountain air. I was on a well-known trail, one I had researched thoroughly. Everything was fine until I saw the sign. A small wooden signpost, half buried in the dirt. The paint was faded, but I could still make out the letters. Scenic Overlook, 2 miles. I hadn't seen this on any maps, but curiosity got the best of me. The trail was narrow, overgrown, winding deeper into the trees. At first, I thought maybe it was an old trail that had been forgotten, but as I walked further, everything changed. At first, it was just a feeling, like the air was too thick, too heavy, like the trees were pressing in around me. Then I heard it. Footsteps, not mine. I stopped, listened. The sound stopped too. I told myself it was just an animal, a deer, a fox, but something felt off. I kept walking faster, and then snap, a branch breaking, closer this time. I turned around, no one was there. I should have turned back, but by then I was too far in, and that's when I saw it. A cabin. It was old, rotting, half sunken into the earth like it had been abandoned for years, but the door was slightly open. And then, I saw the footprints, fresh, leading inside. Something inside me screamed, "Don't," but before I could move, I heard the door creak open wider. I backed away, my heart hammering, and then I heard it, whispering, not loud, soft, close, right next to my ear. I turned, no one was there, but I could feel it. Something was standing right beside me. I ran, I didn't care where, I just ran. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs almost gave out. I pulled out my phone, no signal, pulled out my map, and that's when I noticed it. The Scenic Overlook Trail, it wasn't on the map, it had never been on the map. But the weirdest part, I wasn't lost. I was right back where I started, like I had never left. I sprinted back to my car, never looking back. I threw my gear inside, slammed the door, and peeled out of there. By the time I got home, I was still shaking. I locked my doors, sat in silence. Then, I saw it. Dirt on my floor, like someone had tracked it inside. And fresh footprints leading from my door. I don't hike alone anymore. And if you ever see a trail that's not on your map, don't take it. Solo camping has always been my escape. There's something about the silence, the crisp mountain air, the feeling of being completely alone with nothing but nature around you. It's peaceful. At least, that's what I used to believe. Last year, I went on one final trip before winter made it impossible. Just me, my gear, and a remote valley I had been wanting to explore. No crowds, no noise, no one else. I had planned everything, mapped my route, packed my gear, and even picked out a secluded spot that no one else would bother hiking to this late in the season. But I got a little too ambitious, took some detours. By the time I made it to my site, the sun was already dipping behind the mountains. I wasn't worried though. I had done this before. I was alone as expected. But the valley had occasional grizzly warnings, so I worked quickly. Set up my tent, secured my food, and got moving. Because I still had one goal left before dark: reach the alpine lakes a few kilometers away. I moved fast, following a faint trail through the trees, but after a while the path faded into nothing. Bushwhacking through the undergrowth, I called out periodically, "Hey ho!" a trick to warn any bears in the area of my presence. Nothing unusual, just me, my voice echoing off the trees, my breath fogging in the cold air. Then, I heard it. A voice, a woman's voice, loud, clear, right behind me. She called back, "Hey ho!" I froze, turned around, there was no one there. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for someone to step out of the trees. Nothing, no movement, no sound. I called out, "Hello?" Silence. There was no way I had imagined it. The voice was too real, too close. Someone had been right behind me. I turned, scanning the forest. Nothing. Just endless trees stretching into shadow. I picked up my pace, climbed the ridge toward the lakes. The whole time I kept glancing back, expecting to see someone following. But there was no one. I barely spent 10 minutes at the lakes. I should have stayed longer, enjoyed the view, taken some photos, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. As the light faded, I hurried back. I didn't run. I didn't want to look scared, but my heart was pounding the entire way. I reached my campsite just before total darkness, and to my relief, other campers had arrived. 3 of them, 2 guys and a woman, setting up their tents. I had never been so grateful for company. I walked over, introduced myself, and casually asked if any of them had been hiking toward the lakes earlier. They all shook their heads. One of the guys frowned. "We got here an hour ago. We didn't see anyone on the trail." I felt a chill creep up my spine. That wasn't possible. If someone else had been up there, they would have had to come through this campsite. But no one had. So, who called back to me? That night, I barely slept. I told myself it was just a hiker who left before dark. Maybe they took another trail. Maybe it was an echo. Maybe I imagined it. But the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Because the voice wasn't far away. It wasn't faint. It was right behind me. And whoever or whatever said it never stepped out of the woods. I haven't gone solo camping since. And if you ever hear someone call back to you in the woods, don't answer. My dad and I used to hike together all the time. We'd push ourselves. 20-mile hikes were normal. 30-mile treks weren't unheard of. We knew the mountains, we knew the valleys. Getting lost was never an option. But that day, something was different. Somewhere deep in Yosemite National Park, dehydration set in, and the mountains became a maze. And that's when I met them. We had been hiking all day. We had covered over 20 miles, pushing hard through the trails. We were careful. We always packed enough water, except for this time. We forgot our camelbacks, just 2 big bottles of water between us. By mile 12, we were running on empty. I could feel it, the dizziness, the fatigue, the slowing pace. My dad finally stopped, sat down in the shade of a tree. He needed a moment. I didn't want to just sit there. "I'll find the trail," I told him. "I'll go straight for 10 minutes, then come right back." I should have never left. I walked in a straight line, counting my steps. The air was thick with heat, my vision blurring at the edges, but I kept going, scanning for any sign of the trail. Then I saw him, a kid, no older than 10, standing between the trees watching me. He wore an old Boy Scout uniform, the kind from decades ago, not modern gear. The fabric looked faded, almost dusty. He smiled and said, "I know where the trail is." I didn't even question it, I just followed. We walked in silence for what felt like forever. Then suddenly, another man appeared. A heavy-set guy, big beard, full Scout uniform, but his was different. A massive sash draped across his chest, weighed down with countless medals. His voice was jovial, too friendly. "Looking for the trail?" he asked, smiling wide. I nodded, feeling a little uneasy. "Follow me," he said, and I did. Something about them was off, but dehydration can mess with your head. I needed to find my dad. I needed to find the trail. So I followed. We walked for what felt like an hour, not on a trail, just straight through the brush, over rocks, through the trees. Then finally, the man stopped. "And here it is," he said, stepping aside. A dirt path, lined with stones on either side, a wooden bridge just ahead. I nearly cried in relief. I turned back toward them, ready to thank them. They were gone. Not walking away, not moving, just gone. I spun in a full circle, scanning the trees. No footprints, no rustling branches, nothing, just me and the trail. I didn't stop to think, I just ran. I followed the trail, calling out for my dad, my heart hammering in my chest. When I finally found him, he was pale, anxious. He had been calling for me, searching. I told him everything, the boy, the Scout leader, the trail. He stared at me, confused. "What trail?" I turned, pointed behind me, but the dirt path, the stone-lined walkway, the wooden bridge, they weren't there. We made it back. We didn't talk much. When we reached civilization, I looked up old maps of the area. The path they led me to didn't exist, never had. No wooden bridge, no stone-lined trail, nothing. So, who were they? And how did they lead me home? Maybe I was just delirious. Maybe it was the dehydration. Or maybe they just didn't want me getting lost, and they only appear to those who need them. Days passed. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was dehydration, exhaustion, a hallucination. Maybe I filled in the gaps with what my brain wanted to believe. But then I checked my gear. My boots were covered in dried mud, except only one of them. The left one was caked in dust and dirt, like I had walked through dry terrain. But the right one, the one that had been behind me most of the time, it was soaked through, covered in thick, dark mud. But here's the thing. The ground had been bone dry the entire way back. No streams, no rivers, no mud. I showed my dad. He stared at it for a long time before finally saying, "You walked with someone else." I didn't answer. I just cleaned my boots and put them away. I didn't want to think about it anymore. I didn't want to know. But every once in a while, when I go hiking, I find myself looking over my shoulder, waiting to see someone walking behind me. And sometimes, in the silence of the woods, I swear I hear footsteps that don't belong to me. And that's the end of this story. But the woods, they never stop whispering. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe in stories like this? Have you ever had a similar experience? Let me know in the comments. And if you have your own true horror story, something that's happened to you, feel free to send it to me. My email is in the description below. I'm always looking for new terrifying encounters to share. Thanks again for watching, and remember, some things can't be explained.